The distant future. Supermarkets sell babies as commodities. Women in the future don't have to give birth themselves. They just go to the supermarket and pick out a baby they like. Rachel gently places a baby in her shopping cart, but just as she is about to check out and leave, she suddenly remembers that her husband is black. To avoid unnecessary arguments, Rachel ultimately decides to give birth herself. However, in the future, there is no need to give birth. Doctors can simply extract the couple's DNA to cultivate a baby. After the doctor's magical procedure, they were able to watch the process of life being born. Finally, a tiny tadpole broke through the barrier, and they excitedly embraced each other. This meant a new life was about to be born. Just as they were filled with anticipation, the doctor pushed out a thermos. Looking at the cold thermos, the couple froze in shock, but in the end, they accepted the reality, because inside was their child. In the days that followed, their lives did not change. They could still remotely view their child at any time. Days passed one after another, and the infant had been transferred to the pod. Then the staff brought them headphones. They heard their child's heartbeat for the first time. This moment filled them with excitement. Then they saw the baby, which was the size of a thumb. The couple was filled with hope. Upon returning home, they eagerly began renovating the nursery. Time flew by quickly. Soon, they could bring the pod home. At first, they were very cautious when handling it, so they placed it in the bedroom. However, at night while sleeping, they felt that the pod was out of place there. So Jack decided to move it to the living room. On the way, the man nearly tripped, but fortunately, he managed to steady himself. They then prepared to go back to sleep. Suddenly, an alarm sounded outside. The couple panicked and rushed out to check. They had forgotten to replenish the nutrient solution. At first, the man was very panicked, but as the days passed, he watched the child inside grow steadily, and Jack felt quite relieved. Soon, the storage period at home came to an end, and the child was about to be born. They needed to exchange the pod back, and then wait for the child to be born. After returning home, they felt something was missing. Soon, the couple saw the doctor again, but the doctor said the child would be induced immediately. The couple felt a bit confused, as it was not yet time for the birth. The doctor then explained the demand for the pod was too high, so all the children had to be born early. The doctor then brought out the previous contract, stating that it was clearly written there, and after the child was born, they would have to bring the child back for regular checkups. They were stunned. This was clearly their child. Jack was immediately unwilling, so he took advantage of the doctor's inattention and secretly stole the pod to prevent the child from being taken again. The couple boarded a boat and left the area, heading to a very remote location. They planned to welcome the child's birth there. There were no high-tech products there, and they sought a natural lifestyle. However, one day they suddenly discovered that the pod had lost its connection. The couple realized this must have been done by the hospital. The pod could survive for another 2 months, which was enough time for the child to be born. After waiting for some time, the child was finally born. However, the pod was locked and couldn't be opened. The couple panicked instantly. Jack quickly took out a screwdriver and hammer and directly removed the top. Thus, the child was finally born successfully. Then they returned the pod. They finally lived happily ever after.